Hey guys, how are you? Yep, it's been a while. I've done something on Reset Sniper, and the issue I have with putting things out is I want to talk holistically. And as per this logo, um, the Reset Sniper, the one with the power button, overlaps immensely with the crypto, the one with the C, like a Bitcoin, with the two lines to it. Overlaps immensely with the Market Sniper, the one with the Nautilus shell, the Fibonacci loop. It's very difficult to categorize things. You have three channels, but they all lean on heavily on each other. And this video is going to lean on all. I'm going to touch on many things. Um, in the same way that if I talk about Facebook and its role in a surveillance state, which is probably falls into Reset Sniper, it quickly rolls into Libra, Calibra, and cryptos, which quickly rolls into regulation, the CFC, which is traditional markets, the dollar, Trump's tweet supporting the dollar as the key currency of our era. And he's not a believer in these other things, which I would say if Trump tweets, it's not just him thinking to tweet. If Bitfinex gets pulled in, and some people have tricked them using VPNs and are now being hit by the American CFTC, etc., for accepting Americans, even though they avidly don't accept Americans. It's not isolated incidents. They need to be viewed collectively. So this takes you from regulation, crypto, reset, markets, traditional markets and their regulation. It's all and everything. So I'm just going to shoot from the hip, and I'm going to post this on a number of channels, and we'll see how we're doing. But before I go into that, I want to just do this whole left versus right paradigm. Whilst I think the politics of the day you need to transcend, and most of them are controlled at a certain level, and are penetrated, parasitically penetrated on both levels. In other words, I'm not a pro-Trump, anti-Obama, or pro-Obama, anti-Trump. I see them both as different forms of the control structure that advance one aspect of an agenda, and then the other one gets in and advances the other aspect of the agenda, and the other one gets in and advances, and all you get is a ratcheting up of a greater element towards a larger Bolshevik based socialist communist construct, because that is invariably what replaces a free society and a right-wing element. So here's where I am on this, and I would like to take you through all this. So the left versus right paradigm is very much like the following analogy that I will give you. So the left versus right paradigm is one I typically avoid getting overly sucked into. I never bought the hopium of Obama, and never bought the change and the drain the swamp of Trump. They are both to varying degrees Zionist controlled. So supposedly Obama was all bad, but Trump is actually the guy who has given Jerusalem, in effect, a global town of many religions and faiths with many histories, to Israel, and has given the Golan Heights to Israel. And, you know, there's of course Genie Oil with Dick Cheney, Rothschild, etc. as key directors that were already conceded or provided concessions to search for oil and energy in that area, even though it was never their land. So you know, the whole nature is mine. I see, and I think people that don't recognize conspiracy as an aspect of our political machination, as backward. In other words, why, if you can't get together with a group of mates and control the larger game, wouldn't you? If you're in a certain circumstance where you've been put in a cage with 40 or 50 people, but 11 are your guys, and you get to have a chat prior to that. in a limited resource shell game, why wouldn't you have one of your guys be in charge of media and news dissemination, one of your guys in charge of the creation of the money system, one of your guys in charge of political aspects, a legal guy, etc. So I think it is absolutely naive not to see conspiracy at the top echelons, in the same way that there's conspiring. That doesn't mean everything you come across is conspiracy and there are no random events, but too many people just put in the random drawer. Random's rarely a reason that I accept. Usually things happen for a reason. Anyway, so with that as a prelogue, left versus right, I'm going to give you my overall bias in terms of where I stand on this. So the right generally sees the idea of being moral and looking to improve oneself as a citizen and as an individual, and a moral challenge to grow within, and is inward looking as its core doctrine. In other words, in a society which is predominantly what would be called conservative, character development at school is a big issue. Discipline, respect, authority, recognizing higher wisdom, striving for higher wisdom within yourself. These are constructs of a right-dominated culture. They're also more improve yourself, and the society as a whole improves by encouraging others around you to improve, setting an example, seeking and looking to add value, building wealth, which sees you add value to the society by virtue of the fact that you are giving service, is a noble pursuit, providing you do it with integrity, honesty, and positive contribution with later give back. The left, instead of being focused on self-development, is more focused on the society right away. So they want to fix society. They want to fix the system. They will focus on the society and say there's inherent racism, there's inherent white privilege, we must fix the rape culture on campuses. By definition, activists are nearly always assumed to be leftists. In other words, they are, instead of the development personally, and so the whole, if all others do likewise, the whole ecosystem improves, a bottom-up approach, grassroots approach, they're kind of a top-down approach. They want to just transform and legislate and transformation. So they'll be behind the concept of hate speech and acts like that. It's very common that they are activists. And in actual fact, under a leftist type education system, which is what we're coming now, 5-year-olds will be taught and programmed early on global warming, rape culture, white privilege, all the concepts that they see they need to fix in society. They play a long game and are dangerous in my view for that. They play a long game by beginning in our next generation almost programming through the school system and the university systems that they are become very deeply entrenched in, societal based change. If I were to describe this as your physical body, society, I would say the leftists want to cut a tumor out. They are surgical, it's radical, they want surgery on the body. If they think it's a tumor, they will want to commit surgery and cut it out. Rightists are focused on more prevention. They will drink a green smoothie, live healthy, and look to improve each individual cell on the basis that a healthy cell is a good system already, and whilst it continually can be improved through action that you take at a micro level, across many micro cells running into billions and trillions, you actually become healthier, that actually radical transformation is not required, but slow adjustment in terms of life cycle and elements like that through actions you take at the micro level will maintain you. So that barring if you're in an extremely oppressive society like Israel or Saudi Arabia, where you're run by military junta or a medieval monarchy, major surgery is not a requirement. So if you're in a relatively free, and we have to say that that is changing and has been changing through a very dominant control structure, even in the likes of the UK, the USA, which used to be considered free state nations, but a lot of that has been driven through the entrenched leftist surgery, which is largely focused on the citizen, not on the government's role, the Secret Service, and the dark state, which always seems to be the beneficiaries. Which is why I state, in my opinion, we are walking towards totalitarianism and statism through the intelligence cartel, which is permanent government. Remember, your voted in, voted out are TV stars now, apprentice TV stars, natural antagonists to provoke and divide and keep you in a race argument to avoid discussions on the likes of Epstein, for example, who has a invalid Saudi passport, an Austrian passport, a home in Tel Aviv, and an Israeli passport, and of course American citizenship. And these kind of levels of passports and invalid passports and various are invariably the paperwork of operators, intelligence dark state operators. The fact that no one in New York knows of all his financiering and that he left as a not even a full partner, a limited partner, and then supposedly was so good that he only took billionaire clients and you only know of one, indicates that a large amount of those billions of foreign aid sent to Israel from America is being sourced back for these entrapment agents to capture other Zionists and other non-official Zionists, maybe, and of all various faiths, into entrapment positions where they are therefore controlled when they run for presidents and political office or legal office, like Dershowitz, if Trump's involved, Trump, Clinton, etc., etc. So that's kind of my take on where we are political. So the battle, you can decide, is fundamentally in terms of who I am and how I choose to identify. It is, I'm going to move slightly the camera, is overtly, I'm the personal change, take accountability and responsibility for self and grow thyself in this environment. Only the greatest absolute sins at an absolutely despotic level of state should require revolution. However, in terms of where we are now, I'm potentially a revolutionary, but not a leftist revolutionary, because the battle is not left and right. It's the suppression of citizenship versus a statist goal, a communistic, a future communistic. It's already part there. We're in a technological corporatocracy-based communism. And by the way, just on that note, if I were to say to you, who am I talking about? This is a person, this is a little sidebar for you. He's a member of various commissions and councils. He's on the Trilateral Commission. Go look up what the Trilateral Commission is and what a powerful, behind the scenes, similar to Bilderberg type group it is. The Council on Foreign Relationships, foreign relations. The Council on Foreign Relations, largely started like the Atlantic Committee by Kissinger et al. This person is on the Council for Foreign Relations. The New York Academy of Sciences. Remember, you control science. You can choose your science that you listen to. Think of global warming, etc., and the cycle of the Earth. That's not to say humans aren't having an impact on the planet, but we are like a mini trend cycle in huge macro trends of an overall planetary system. And the Institute of International Education, someone who is controlling what you get taught in colleges, schools, and the highest of perceived school value, in other words, the brand schools, where the leftists are strongest and where they do a lot of their dark work and a lot of the social revolution is preached, the campus rape culture as a thing which is part of a, in my opinion, war on the white males in general, and the aggressive feminisms. Who am I talking about? So let's rephrase the questions. I took so many sidebars there and went down so many little avenues. He's a member of CFR, Trilateral Commission, New York Academy of Sciences, and the Institute of International Education. All of those. You would imagine a highly controlled, high-ranking member of the dark state would be the person I'm talking about. And it is, in fact, Jeffrey Epstein. Yes. In other words, that guy that seems to oversee all of these huge resources and these property investments that include islands in the British Virgin Islands, Florida, biggest place in New York, an ex-school. It's so big, 51,000 square feet. It dwarfs everything else, is actually Jeffrey Epstein. And you can imagine his money and who it was provided by and for what purpose it's been provided by. So this is the realm you're living in. If you think this guy's just a conspiracy nut, he's seeing things that aren't there. I've seen far too many coincidences, far too many random events that see, you only have to look at the control of APAC, you only have to look at Cynthia, I forget her surname, African-American senator who was offered funds to push her career, but only if she signed, pledged allegiance to Israel. All of these particular events, the anti-BDS movement, the fact that it's illegal to be a boycotter of Israel in America, can you believe that? To know who is, as Voltaire said, to recognize who your master is, observe who you may not criticize. Anti-Semitism is an immediate word that is thrown at anybody who questions anything the country, nation state of Israel does. And there will be very many innocent Jews, but unfortunately they're not gaining traction against the out-and-out Zionists, and many Zionists are not Jewish. Anyway, so this is the realm we're in. This is the realm we're in. Now I want to talk to you about transition slightly, and I'm going to talk to you about the crypto game and Facebook. So the history of Facebook. DARPA had an experiment in the earlier days of developing AI, which they closed in 2004. And it was called LifeLog. LifeLog was a number of people that volunteered to capture all their comings and goings, talk what about their day, when digital cameras came, added lots of pictures, what they did during the day, etc., etc. In other words, it was essentially, and it was through DARPA in America, an entire surveillance privacy fold out where you agreed to conduct all of these things. It was funded and it moved forward and up until 2004. Eventually the guy who was involved, Gable, his contract was not renewed. There was plenty of work that could have gone on. It was making good progress, but it was suddenly culled, and Facebook suddenly started in 2004. Now, Facebook was, so this was a precursor, almost a drill, a test run, and the final one they decided. Remember, if they start a project with a particular goal, they won't just put all their money on one horse. You'll not know if you were hired to do LifeLog and you got volunteers. You'll not know that they've backed 4 other people. And they're going to collate and learn across a base. They do testing, just like internet marketeers will try a subject header on 5 different versions and do testing. This is the whole principle of AI. They want absolute control. They want to try everything. They want the most manipulative, most powerful option. So next thing you get Zuckerberg. Where did it form and originate? Well, it started in Yale, quickly spread to Harvard, etc. Now the Skull and Bones, the notion that these are the best schools, so they attract the best people, it's the exact same in the UK. Oxford and Cambridge are where they hire for MI5 and MI6, and they go and they sell them as the best schools because they want to attract the best input. Of course, you churn out the best scientists if you bring in the smartest, most motivated brains. So a brand becomes an even stronger brand by attracting higher quality, particularly in education. By getting the means of the best and the belief that you will earn the most post, you will attract the best people to the best universities. Thereby, even if your system is not the best, you have the best outputs. Subsequently, you'll have more money and will be able to build the best system. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. What came first? Well, secret societies and many other things and thought groups and people being backed from certain universities to go far. Think of someone like Paul Krugman versus other far smarter economists that do much less outrider running for the economic structure, could have gone to other universities, but you just keep giving this guy the highlight because he controls the agenda. So they're also the smartest universities usually are the most dark state controlled universities in terms of message, and they often originate as the original thinkers and the thought leaders and the smartest minds, and so they keep repeating this even when it's not true, just like you're hearing Epstein some kind of a financial genius, when in actual fact there's no known trades that he's done. We don't even have the information. People will just tell you he's a genius. So you'll forgive him a little bit for his eccentricities of wanting to run traffic rings of underage girls, rape and traffic rings. It's a specialty of Colombia recently had to close down on Israelis that had moved their underage sex to another out of Israel to Colombia, and they do guided holidays down there, and there's been a major snapdown on there, as they've been called it. We've just had a 19-year-old here in Cyprus gang raped by 12 Israelis prior to going to the IDF. She had consensual sex with one of them a few days before and was working there, so that's her full story. But he then showed up with all his mates and they were filming it on a camera. So there is a degree and a mentality, a culture of supremacy, in my opinion. But anyway, let's not get back onto the Zion and Israeli concept. So Epstein is at the highest echelons. Facebook is in my view a definite control structure mechanism. Bono was invited to invest in it early. He's a guy that regularly used to be anti-apartheid and all of those things when it suited the control structure for that to be the case, and it was a moral cause and seemed like a moral political person. Now he seems to have lost his morality to a great degree, and now he's very pro the left activist kind of thinking. So we're getting a lot of these people. Anyway, going back to crypto and Libra and Facebook. Facebook had hearings with the regulatory forces. And Facebook says they will report to the American IRS. These are the core important points. I was early on this. I said 3 years ago, within 3 months of getting involved with crypto, I said this is likely dark state controlled. To everyone's great disgust. Got massive blowback on that. To everyone's great disgust, you're not going to get liberty. They will never let you have your own money. They would have destroyed it already. Now some of you will say, but Trump just recently made large tweets. Well, the thing is they manage the ascent of things going up. The last thing they want is an unruly, remember the Fed seeks to control markets. The worst thing they want is unruly ascents or capitulations. They're okay with upward swinging trends in things. They don't like what they describe as disorderly. Bitcoin was getting disorderly strong, and the talk following the Fed U-turn was getting disorderly about how the dollar supposedly was supposed to go up and now major U-turn. So they did their big fake out, which we also predicted they would do. We even gave the time and the effect it would have on the stock market. Initially bearish in October last year that you would go into potential recession, and we believe that recession is happening, and the recession within a larger depression that never ended because we're in the psychotic debt spiral. Think of a Nautilus ever growing, spiraling out. Almost pull my cord out there moment in my hand actions. Better make sure I haven't lost you entirely. Yeah. So with that going on, we will now have a mooning equity market, because your alternatives for pension funds are bonds that are going to be going ever more negative. Larger degree of negative rate bonds, and it'll be coming to America soon. And the fact of this irony is that markets are supposed to price risk and return. Now, many people, I think of Raoul of Real Vision, is like, go euro dollar. That is not a currency call. That's not a currency call. It's debt he's talking about. He's talking about the euro dollar, the debt-based market that is created outside of America in dollars. It's called euro dollar because mainly the euro was responsible for it. Go long euro dollars. In other words, bonds continue to go up as rates go down. Get as leveraged as you can. Now, the problem I have with this trade is it's like buying the dot-com boom in the melt-up phase. You're probably going to make money initially because it's going to get worse before it gets better. But at some point, the music stops and the reset occurs. At some point, the music stops and the reset occurs. And unless you're relying on the bigger idiot theory, it's only going to get worse first. In my view, there is quite a possibility that you get a debt jubilee and all debt is cancelled. So as the investor in debt, you could lose all your money. Pensions could lose all their money, and then governments will now become the state purveyor of all pensions. Private pensions will cease to exist, hence my Bolshevik call and communism call. A technologically corporatocracy-driven Bolshevism is coming our way. So so my problem with that trade is you're buying into the corruptness of the system on the basis that it'll continue to corrupt before it fails, but you have no outcome or knowledge of how that failure will take place. I would far sooner do a precious metals long, gold and silver miners that have done awfully versus the S&P 500 for most of this long period that can be bought at bargain basement prices. Leveraged with call options for 3 and 5 year out calls, you name it, just get in on it. And I repeat my view that 21, 22 is probably where it'll go down. I think Trump will get re-elected acriminalously in a vile, very divisive election that will increase the divide so that they can crash it on a conservative, allegedly conservative. Remember, he's a proxy. He's a fake. He's a crypto conservative, supposedly appearing to the evangelicals. All those evangelicals now on True News and the like, how dare you take God's name in vain, as if that's the biggest sin. And we trusted you and we voted for you. By participating in the political system, you're an idiot. That's my first take to you. You're shocked that you're going to be betrayed by, the next Zionist AIPAC-controlled hope and change candidate will be along in a minute for you to vote for. Go and justify their system some more. It's absolute idiocy to see the guys doing a rant, we've been cheated, on True News. And if you think that taking God's name in vain is the worst thing, when he's approving wars, legal conflicts, arms, provoking Palestinians and the rest of the Middle East by getting Golan Heights away, Syria, Iran, and escalating major macro warmongery with all the hawks that he's also had put in his government for him, like Bolton, etc., that are all AIPAC Zion controlled, it makes you look a fool. But anyway, so Libra, which will be Facebook's token, will report into the IRS. So what does this mean? This means that you will have essentially a kind of stable coin which will have a basket of everything, but they want to be Swiss-based. So the theory is they're already going to start denationalizing because Switzerland has better innovation laws and New York particularly has gone and clamped down on crypto because its overt view is that they want to protect the dollar until they can't protect it anymore. And then they'll just switch teams. Remember, America is being used by the parasites that have penetrated it. It'll be folded and dropped, and the people will be left there high and dry. There'll be an ex-imperial state. It'll be one of the shortest cycles of leading superpower nations ever had, if you look at the long history. So Libra is going to reposition, and Calibra, which will be the onboarding wallet, which is where they're going to gatekeep your compliance level for tax all over the world. Tax all over the world. So whilst the Americans will be one of the first to be reported to the IRS for any, and they do it under money laundering. And one of the things Simon Dixon, who's worth following and is a friend of mine, We both spoke at Acapulco at different times, and he's behind Bank to the Future. He highlighted is that the money laundering is the reason given. In other words, we're here to protect you from the bad people that are doing things with their money and not paying taxes like you should do and all of that. I think of all the things that you, transactions that you do, if they're above a certain size, banks, accountants, lawyers, they're all spies on you, have to report it as a suspicious transaction. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think of going on nearly $1 billion, hundreds and hundreds of millions, and I speak out of turn, 267 successful prosecutions for money laundering have occurred. You're not even talking 0.01% of it, but that's the reason given to you. So the statistics do not hold up that it's just you cheating, non-tax paying money launderers, whatever the case may be. It's all about tax extraction. It's all about tax extraction, which is another point, which I've done a free view YouTube about. You need a position now for any possible future gains you may make in terms of who you are, your residency, etc., and how you do it, so that you can legally pay a small amount or very little tax with any future capital gains if you take all the right steps. Otherwise, you're going to have a 30, 40, 50% stop loss event brought to you by your government. Separate discussion, not taking that one any further. So what do you have? So gold, I was looking at a project, many projects, and looking at the process for extracting gold. In South Africa, they were reprocessing the tails, the big mine slumps. They're kind of these silt that got deposited. Quite ugly for the scenery. When they first mined, they're reprocessing them because gold mining extraction is even better. And the sulfuric acid and the water waste, and I mean it's like fracking of old. It's pre-fracking. It's not underground anymore. But I mean the chemicals that are generated, the amount of destruction we do just to extract residually small amounts on ore and deposit that has already had a first level of extraction to get gold shows how precious and rare. And many of these have been funded by Oppenheimer and Rockefeller in Rothschild in South Africa itself. It was recently, historically, Barney Bonato sold for the equivalent of $5 billion in today's money, all his holdings in South Africa to Cecil John Rhodes, who was funded, again, you go research this for yourself, by the Rothschild family, and had literally the negotiation that went on all night in a tent, wrote the biggest check in the world at that time to Barney Bonato, who later fell off a ship, supposedly committing